What's good, family? Smash the like button and subscribe. So my dog, Anthony, the booty buster, Joshua, has reacted to John Theory airing his son all the way out, and airing his son's team all the way out. There weren't even a bit of not air in between John Theory and his son's team. John Theory went off the chain. Before we go into AJ's reaction, let me give you, man, a summary of the things John Theory said. He said, listen, Bob Arum, you are one messy looking ass dude. You said there was no arbitration problems. Then there was arbitration problems. Then there was a fight magically, miraculously booked, mysteriously booked within 12 hours. Within 12 hours of a massive shock, of an alleged massive shock, you had it all booked in, and you was whiffing the contract under my son's nose in some sports hall for him to sign. Just messy looking. You promised me there was no problems with arbitration. Then there was. And it's not for John Theory. I've spoke to him and he said, listen, YB, it's not even really the problem that it was not really the issue that there was problems. We understand in business things can arise, but it's more to do with the reaction to it. We've been working on the AJ fight for 6 months. Then it falls through, and within 12 hours you're whiffing this contract under my son's nose for him to sign it in some messy sports hall. That's what's got John Theory up in arms. It's the whole after event. There's been no concern. There's been no trying to make things better with the other team, with AJ's team or with Saudi or whoever else. Even if you don't like AJ's team, what about the Saudis, the neutral, the third party? You just mug them off and say nothing and just go about your own business. Now, fair play to John Theory, because anyone who neutrally looks at this situation, they know something don't sit right. I've never seen anything like it. 6 months working on something, it falls through, and you've got, you know what I'm saying, a shock result, and you've sorted it all out within 12 hours. But yet you couldn't sort out the AJ fight for 6 months. Anyone who's honest with themselves knows something ain't right about that. Now, John Theory alleges that, he thinks that there may be some sort of conspiracy against Theory, that the American cabal want to get the belts back. Now, John Theory, just quickly, before we go into AJ's response, John Theory, if you've seen Deontay Wilder's pay-per-view numbers, you know there ain't no American cabal doing anything for Deontay Wilder, because if there was an American cabal working for Deontay Wilder, he'd have been selling more than 200k pay-per-view buys. That's what we do know. We know that, for example, Floyd Mayweather, he's linked in with the cabal, yeah? His babe mum disappeared, Roger Mayweather disappeared, and there's a reason for that. That's when you do multi-million pay-per-views. You have to cash people in. Deontay Wilder, to his credit, none of his people have disappeared, but look at his pay-per-view numbers. Yeah? That's why his pay-per-view numbers are dead. He ain't with no cabal. Wilder wants to be, don't get me wrong, he's trying to beg to get into the cabal. That's why he's twerking and whatnot. He's doing all the humiliation stuff, but they don't want him in. He's too skinny. They like their men more pulp. But anyway, that's for another video. End of the day, I'm just telling you now, there ain't no American conspiracy from what I'm hearing. And you best believe I've got all the contacts. Now, moving on. AJ, I hate to have ranted for most of this video already, but you might have seen on the screen AJ's response. AJ responded to John Theory and the words he said, and AJ replied the following to John Theory's words. He said, listen, I've got a lot of time for John Theory's interview. It was a good listen. Some massive statements have been made, if you listen carefully. I would want to sit down with big John Theory, have a Guinness and talk fighting. So yeah, we know this already. And I think what's happened here is AJ has also aired his son out last week. And AJ's probably feeling a bit guilty. He's feeling a little bit guilty that he exposed the fact that his son stood there and froze when one of his bare-knuckle champion grandparents, Tom Saunders, Billy Joe Saunders' dad, was getting moshed. And he was getting mauled by a whole bag of security. Tyson Fury just stood there and froze, and obviously AJ aired that out on a global scale, and so AJ's kind of seeing this. He's seeing how humble John Fury is now that the YB exposed what he exposed the videos of how John Fury ended his professional boxing career, and all in all, AJ's feeling a little guilty right now. Even though he's essentially the victim, he's the one who's been left weeing in the wind at the moment. AJ's from a humble stock, yeah? He has empathy. He can empathise with John Fury. He can empathise with what the Furies have been going through the last few weeks. Let's not forget, it's all kind of falling apart for them. Yeah, Billy Ho Saunders jacking in the corner. Tom Saunders getting moshed, and Fury standing there and freezing. What else have we got? I'm sure there's a few other things. Oh yeah, the AJ fight falling through, and Fury running back in, Fury getting gassed off of fighting Wilder again, even though he'd been going through court not to fight him. It's just all kind of messy looking, isn't it, really? And John Fury even said it himself. John Fury said, listen, Tyson, you said you didn't want the belt. You said you don't care about belts. So what's going on here then? What is this? So in a way, and again, John Fury said that, Tyson's got people around him now all in his ear. Who knows? It may be the case that Tyson Fury really does have people all up in his ear, and John Fury genuinely believed his son wanted it. Although I am also hearing that potentially John Fury, this fight here could just be another PR, another MTK Ultra plan here. Yeah, let's wheel John Fury out, get John Fury to sit there and be humble and make us look a bit better, because let's not forget, publicly speaking, all fans have been roasting. I mean, look at the boxing media. Even neutral boxing channels who like to shill for everyone, even they've been turning around, innit? Even they've been turning around and going against Fury. So they see this. MTK cartels see this, and they think, you know what? We need to kind of get the public back on our side. I know what to do. Let's wheel John Fury out. His public reputation's finished now anyway, since Mickey Theo's got him in hiding, and since the tapes have been released of him being knocked spark out. Tell you what we'll do. Wheel him out and just get him out there selling his son out to kind of balance things out, because now everyone's saying, oh, John Fury, he's so real. All he's done really is tell everyone what everyone already knew anyway. Now I get it, how that can be seen as a truth teller, but the real truth teller would have been saying something 6 months ago, because 6 months ago, this thing's been going on for 6 months, and I've been calling it out. John Fury has been chilling, but you know what? All's fair in love and war. I'm going to let John Fury off. For whatever reason, he's come out, and I'm trying to think, what more could he have said, really? I think he's give a fair account of himself, but listen. AJ, at this point in time, again, because we don't know how genuine this is from John Fury, I don't believe these days, yeah, I don't believe anything I see or anything I hear. End of the day. Not when you've got MTK Ultra out there trying to change reality and whatnot. And on that basis, again, we know AJ comes from good fair stock. AJ comes from good fair stock, good fair people. So when he sees people, or when he perceives people like John Fury to be genuine, he's always happy to reach an arm out. But guess what? That happens every time. Does that make sense? For me, yeah, I told you, man, a week ago now, I'm done with reaching arms out. Me right now, I'm staying on necks 24/7. So we see AJ here saying, oh, I've got a lot of time for John Fury, and he's made some massive statements, and I'd love to sit down and have a guinea. So AJ here is essentially stretching his arm out. Me, I'd have slapped his arm and told him, listen, you damn right, you telling it. You know, one of them, that's what I would have gone. Me personally, I'd be taking this and be going on the offensive, because what have we learned? All this reaching your arm out and trying to, oh yeah, I'd love to, all that stuff, you don't get nothing for it. You don't. Because if, innit, what have you, after all the years, yeah, of doing this, like Eddie Hearn said about the governing bodies, Eddie Hearn basically said, listen, the YB is 100% correct. We're probably going to vacate the WBO belt because we're sick of bending our knees to the governing bodies. We've been listening to the YB. YB's sources are 100% correct. That's what Eddie Hearn said. Eddie Hearn came out and said, YB's sources are 100% correct. We're probably going to vacate because we're sick of taking orders. Now that there is the right line of thinking, but you've got to apply that in all areas.
Now, whilst John Fury seems to be telling the truth, what seems to be, you know what I'm saying? His conscience potentially has been pricked. At this point for me, yeah, you don't owe John Fury nothing. I'd stay on the offensive and say, look how messy Fury's team is looking right now. That's what I'll be doing. If I was advising AJ, and I'm sure there's loads of AJ fangirls who say, oh, YB, you know, AJ's a better man than you, and AJ, well, listen, how has being a better man got him on? How many of the biggest fights has AJ being a good man got him? None. And that's what I'd say to that. From now on, like I said a week ago, from now on, it's straight greasy. It's straight road, man. It's straight expose. And if I was AJ, when that video came out of John Fury, I'd have posted a video of him being chinned and said, listen, yeah, simple as that. That's how I'm feeling right now. Because at the end of the day, yeah, no matter what no one says, oh, John Fury's being honest. Honesty hasn't got you the big fight you want. Honesty ain't doing you no favours. And I know AJ's probably thinking right now that, oh, you know, maybe if I can get John Fury on side, all that stuff ain't gonna work, man. Your best bet, yeah, if you really want this fight, AJ, is to piss John Fury off. And maybe, you know what I'm saying, for example, if AJ came out here and mugged John Fury off some more, John Fury at that point would say to his son, you need to go and get him for me, kind of thing. This whole reaching an arm out, Fury that ain't gonna encourage Fury to want to fight you. He sees that and thinks, oh great, now AJ's off my back for a little bit. See what I mean? Like I told you, let's assume for a second this was some sort of PR game plan. This PR game plan is doing exactly what they want it to do, because not only are the Fury fans who are angry at him are now hearing John Fury tell the truth and say, oh yeah, it's great, look, John Fury's speaking out, which takes pressure off Fury himself, Tyson Fury himself. Also, AJ's team, who are seething at how they've been treated, they now hear it and say, oh, let's reach an olive branch out. Are you forgetting who the enemy is here, AJ? Now you forgot. It was only 2 weeks ago he was getting mugged off by them. Now you want to sit down and have a drink. Drink about what? Let's tell you what to do, AJ. If I was you, I'd say, you know what, John? If you're not bothered, let's get this fight done, and then we'll go for a drink. Yeah, let's get it signed, and then we'll go for a drink. Or better yet, let's have the fight, and I'll take you out for a drink after that. That's what you should be saying. Not all this, it's not going to work. They're too busy playing. These cats here, they've played so many games. I don't believe any of it anymore. I've heard it all. And let's not forget as well, John Fury and Tyson Fury, they change like the wind. 1 minute, and I've seen it. You can actually look at interviews. In fact, even in the same interview, I've seen John Fury say one thing and then say another. So when you hear this now, you can't take it like this isn't like someone with credibility saying it. John Fury will come out tomorrow and say, oh, his son's got the best team and Frank Warren's been in the game 100 years and it's the best management team ever and whatever else. The same way, it's always how he's worked. They're always messy looking. So I just feel like, you was just about getting on the right track about how to deal with these kind of characters, these goofy characters. You were just getting there, and now they've lowered your guard again. I don't care what no one says. They noticed. They thought, oops, AJ's now airing us out at every opportunity. We don't want this. We don't want this global pressure, because people forget that this isn't Dillian White. When Dillian White says something, don't no one see it. When AJ says something, in boxing at least, globally in boxing, everyone sees it. They can't afford that. That's no good for them. They need AJ on side. So they wheel out John Fury to only... Listen, John Fury didn't say nothing that everyone didn't already know. Do you not understand? So what really is John Fury getting credit for? He hasn't come out and said nothing explosive that we didn't already know, or that hasn't already been worked out in the last 2 weeks. You have to really question yourself, wait a minute, okay, why are we giving John Fury all this credit? What, so because John Fury is his son's dad, that means that he can't... I just can't understand. What else was John Fury supposed to say, for example? So is that what we do in this day and age? In this day and age, do we give people utmost credit for telling us what we blatantly already know? We blatantly already know Tyson Fury's team have played the craziest games in the last 2 weeks. Okay, and these days it seems you get loads of credit for saying things that everyone already knew. No, let John Fury come out and tell us something we didn't already know. Like, for example, you know what? Fish Eyes rang me 3 months ago and told me this fight ain't going to happen because we don't want it to happen. How about that? Let me hear something from John Fury that's exclusive, and maybe then I'll want to go for a drink for him. But for now, it's no good now coming out 2 weeks afterwards and saying, oh, well, yeah. We all know that. We all know that this Fury's team's a joke. I just feel like, to me, this when so-called truthers come out, and they tell the truth, but you don't hear nothing new, that sounds like PR 101 in my mind. Because I'm sure I'm sure John's got some exclusives he had in his head. There's no way, if it's so organised. John Fury said, it seems to me something's been going on. Well, what are you telling me? In 6 months, you haven't heard nothing then? Isn't it? Maybe I'm being too conspiratorial. Maybe John Fury's maybe John Fury's in the dark. And maybe that's why he's saying things like about people in the US, all the leeches. Because Tyson Fury's... But then again, Tyson Fury only went over to America, 4 weeks ago? So, Tyson's been in the UK up until 4 weeks ago. So them 4 months, Fury's been in the UK. It's only the last 4 weeks Fury's been away. So, what's John Fury really talking about? Tyson's only been in the US for 4 weeks. 4 or 5 weeks. So the rest of the time, what, are you telling me John Fury didn't know anything? Because I find it interesting, let's not forget, people have short memories again. And AJ, you've got a short memory again. It was only 6 weeks ago, when Tyson Fury was in the UK, John Fury was saying, the fight's not going to happen. Let's not forget what happened here. I did videos on it, I did videos of John Fury coming out and saying this fight ain't going to happen. And at the time, it sounded like they was all reading off of a hymn sheet. Because you had 4 people who were known to be very random. Fish Eyes, Bob Arum, Tyson Fury, John Fury. 4 very random people in general. They were all saying the same thing. The money's not going to be there. They can't get the money there. Every single one of them saying exactly the same thing. At which point, we concluded, it sounds to me like they're running a hymn sheet here. Like they've got a script to follow. So how can we go from Tyson Fury and John Fury in the same place in the UK, reading off a hymn sheet for 3-4 months? Tyson Fury moves to the US, it all falls apart, and now John Fury, everyone's treating him like he's an outsider. Well, you can't have it both ways. If they're reading off a script, John Fury didn't come out 3 months ago, did he, and say, innit? He was happy then to shill and say, AJ ain't going to get it done, and Team AJ and Eddie Hearn the Lion and whatnot. Now all of a sudden we're happy to give him credit now, man. I'm sorry. People, in this game, people's memories are too short. Stay on the neck. Don't let you... What are you, AJ, are you this cheap? Are you this cheap, that Team Fury and John Fury, Team Fury and John Fury can shill for 6 months, put out one video telling us things you already know, and you want to make olive branches out, and I'd love to sit down with him, and that just seems cheap to me. He ain't give you nothing. Let him come out and give you something that we didn't already know, and then maybe you get some olive branch. That's my bottom line right now. Because listen, before I go, this whole nicey business, this is what got us in this position in the first place. Well, it certainly didn't help. This whole nicey business, well, it don't get you nowhere. All it gets you is you put in the corner, in the cupboard, with the peephole. Let's not forget that, because Fury and Wilder, they've been fighting consistently together. No problem. And they like it. When you're nice and quiet in the corner, that's what they want. Fury and Wilder want AJ to sit there in the corner quietly and fight all of the hardest fighters and fight all the hard mandatories. Meanwhile, Wilder and Fury get to fight each other and then use AJ's name for clout to build their fights, build their 9-fight triple trilogy. That's what they want. Yeah, we're going to fight. I'll tell you what we'll do, Wilder. We're going to fight for the next 4 years. We're going to fight twice every year. And for the other 6 months of the year, we'll talk about fighting AJ. We'll take it in turns. One fight for 1 6-month period, you can build the AJ fight. we'll build the AJ fight for the next 6-month period. That's what they're doing. Let's not forget that. It was AJ and Wilder for a year, and then Fury stepped in. It was AJ and Fury for a year, then Wilder stepped in. That's what they're doing. It's a big plan. It's a big MTK Ultra plan. That's what it is. It's a bait and switch. Oh, yes, we'll build the Wilder and AJ fight for a year. Then we'll slip Fury in there for the clout. Yes, we'll build the AJ and Fury fight for a year, and then we'll slip Wilder in for the clout. That's what's happened here. AJ and Fury had been built for a year, and what happened? Bait and switch. Fling Wilder in there. And now, because of how close it was alleged to be, the AJ and Fury fight, now the Wilder and Fury fight has exponentially more eyes on it. Because no one weren't bothered about that fight until everyone was rock hard about the AJ and Fury fight. So again, we have to remember the wider context here. We can't be just being, oh yeah, I love what John Fury said and I'm happy to sit here and be quiet now because John Fury put a 5-minute video out telling us what we already knew. No. AJ should have come out and said, listen, John, it's a shame you didn't have more to say for the last 6 months. It's a shame you didn't have more truth to say for the last 6 months. That's what AJ should have said. If anything. You know what I'm saying? If AJ should have said anything, that's what it should have been. John, where have you been for the last 6 months? Where's all this truth been? Because for the last 6 months, you've been one of the negative Nellies saying the money ain't going to be there, it's not going to happen. Now all of a sudden you'll care and that. I'm sorry, I don't buy it. They see the public reaction. John Fury has been the PR man. He's been wheeled out like Ben Davidson. No doubt.